Hi everybody, my name is Angie. Welcome back to my channel. So today I am showing you how to make, this is the Ugly Naked Guy Hobo bag from Sincerely Jen Patterns. So if you have made any of Jen's patterns before, you will know that they are all Friends, TV show Friends themed. So this one is the Ugly Naked Guy. So it is a rounded bottom. So this is a separate piece. We're not boxing the bottoms, we're sewing that on. And then we have a nice big pocket on the front, and the back is pieced together. So these are two separate panels here. These are separate panels on the side here. And then we have nice big opening here with a zipper pocket, nice big zipper pocket on the inside. And then the handles are attached with square or rectangle rings, whatever you call them. So yeah, and then we do have a tab on the end of it. So that kind of gets tucked in. So the zipper attachment on this one is a different method than what I have done before. So it was fun to, try a new zipper attachment method. The zipper, I didn't do the greatest job zipping this up, so the zipper gets stuck. This was my trial run, not the one that I will be sewing in this video, but on this, I'm doing everything basically to the pattern. The only difference is the zipper, or not the zipper, but what is this, like the square ring connectors. So this little piece here that goes in the side that holds the square ring in place. I'll show you what I'm doing with that. I am, the way the pattern is written, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just for my machine, it creates a little bit too much bulk. So I am doing something to reduce the bulk on that to make it a little bit easier to top stitch through there. So I am making a slight modification to that. And other than that, I don't think I have any other modifications to this. I'm just following along with the pattern. I did use a canvas for the lining, so I didn't interface it. I usually do that, but just to reduce some bulk and honestly save me some time. It's a thick enough fabric that I don't think it needs interfacing, so I didn't interface it. So it is a little bit slouchier in there, but that's fine. It's meant to be a slouchy bag. But yeah, it was a really fun bag to make, and I look forward to making another one again in this video. So come along and I'll show you how to make it. All right, I'm hoping this angle works out because there's been several videos where I'm blocking the camera or what I'm doing is not in view. So I'm hoping this works out a little bit better. All right, so we're gonna take our two exterior center pieces, lay those right sides together, clip, and sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then it's a good idea to have your iron on and ready to go while you're making this, because there's a lot of pressing seams open. So this one, we're going to go ahead and press the seam open with our iron, and then we'll come back to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch on either side of the seam at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so on the top of that now center panel, we're gonna go ahead and take our zipper and lay it right side down onto the top right side of the exterior. Clip and baste that in place. and we'll take one of our one of our lining pieces and lay that right side down onto the right side of the zipper, or onto the right side of the exterior. Clip. And then we'll flip that over and sew that at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then we're going to fold both of those back. And then top stitch that at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now we need these two, I think they're the top center pieces, I think is what they're called. So we're going to take them and lay them right side together and sew along this short side here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and press that seam open and top stitch on either side. All right, so now this is considered our top center panel, I think. And we're just gonna go ahead and lay that along the top zipper here. And clip. And I am just, you know, aligning my seams here, like when I set it down. I'm aligning it up on top of the zipper here, but I'm also aligning this seam here with this seam of the bottom piece so that it is nice and centered. And I have a feeling I'm gonna try and push the zipper off, so I just basted the zipper closed here so I can pull it all the way out of my way and I don't have to worry about my zipper pull flying off, because I did that on the first one that I made. All right, and then we'll go ahead and baste that in place. Now we're going to take our other lining piece, the front pocket lining piece, and we will lay that right sides together with our other lining piece and align it along the top of the zipper here. Okay, and then we'll sew that at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press that back. You can press it with your iron if that is helpful. And we'll top stitch that at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go slow over these center seams here, because it can get a little bulky with the, you know, couple layers of woven interfacing that we got on there. And then with the lining pieces, they are a little, like they don't match up. The one side is going to be longer than the other. So you can go ahead and trim. Actually, I don't want to like worry about trimming. No, that's fine. Okay. No. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and clip these pieces together as is. And then I'll trim it down after. But you don't even really have to trim it. All right. I feel like it's going to shift otherwise. So I'm just going to sew it at like 3/8 inch, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Like that. I can't really see what my inner seam allowance is because the bigger piece is in the way. All right, now that I sewed that, I will go ahead and trim it down. You get the same result either way, whether you trim it down first or sew it first or whatever. All right, and I think I cut my zipper pocket a little too big, so I am trimming it down so that it matches up with my exterior. And now we are going to go ahead and take 2 of our side pieces and you want to line them up. So the little swoopy part should be up on the top, and we're going to line it up so that the lower part of it, so here's the taller part, the lower part of it is going to match up with our seam here. So if we were to put it on the wrong side, they're not going to line up. This piece is going to be a lot taller. So we put it like that so that it kind of swoops up. You can see the general shape it's supposed to be. So we'll lay those pieces right sides together and clip and sew. And we'll do that on both sides. So same with over here. Like to back stitch over the zipper just because, I don't know, extra security for the zipper. Okay, now this time instead of butterflying it open, we're just going to go ahead and press these side seams back and then top stitch along the side seam here. You can press it with your iron if you want. I'm just kind of folding it back with my hand. And I'll sew a little bit and then kind of give it a tug again to make sure it's folded nicely. Okay, we'll do the same on the other side. So that is what we're looking like. So that is now our front panel. So now we can go ahead and set this piece aside. And we're going to take our 2 back pieces. And basically we're going to do the same thing, except this doesn't have the zipper attached. So we're just going to go ahead and fold these 2 right sides together and then sew along this shorter edge here. And then we'll take this over to our iron, press this seam open, and top stitch on either side of the seam. All right, so that gives us that, which is basically just like the same as this center panel here. So now we just need to take this and attach our other two mirrored side pieces. So same as we did for the front. Oops, that's wrong. We're gonna go ahead and on the shorter of the little swoopy side here, we're gonna go ahead and attach that on both sides. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and again push it back and top stitch on the side panel. All right, so those are our two panels. Now we're going to go ahead and take them, lay them right sides together, match up the side seams here. And we'll match up both side seams. And sew down either side. Now at the bottom here, there is a little bit of a curvy thing. So just kind of go slow if you need to. It's not a huge curve, so. Oh, actually, wrong. All right, just kidding. We're only gonna do the one side because now we need to open it up. We're gonna butterfly this seam and top stitch on either side of this one too. Now you might not notice this when you were sewing it together, but you will notice it when you're pressing it with your iron, that this seam does bow out a bit. It's not meant to be a flat seam, so it's not going to like lay completely flat. It is bowed a little bit. So again, it kind of bows out just a little bit there. Not a huge bowing out, but just a little bit. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and lay the other two sides, right sides together. And we'll go ahead and sew that at a 1/2 inch seam allowance again. And this one is a little bit harder to, you know, press it over at the iron. Might be easier to turn it right side out. And then from the inside, press it just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and top stitch, and we kind of have to go through our little tube here to top stitch it. And I think I'm going to go from the top like this instead of it inside out. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll try it. So I'm just making sure that everything is staying out of the way. And I'm only sewing over what I want to sew over. Okay, that wasn't too bad, sewing it that way. Okay, the other way is doing it wrong side out. And where am I at? Here we go. And instead of going down like this, you know, we're gonna go and sew this part on the bottom. And you kind of have to like look through the little tube that you made and do it this way. So whichever way you think is going to be easier for you, whether inside the tube or scrunching it from the back, you know, either way. All right, so here is what we're looking like. So now we got to go ahead and attach our bottom. So this part is a little tricky. And I did go ahead and mark my centers. I just have to remark them because my interfacing's covering it. But basically you just want to fold your piece in half, mark the centers on either side over here, and then fold it in half again and mark your centers here and here. It is a bit easier to do that before fusing all the interfacing because this is real stiff now with, I think it's 2 layers of Decoville Heavy, so it does get very stiff. So like I said, before I fused my interfacing, I went ahead and marked my centers, and I am just like cutting out the woven interfacing that kind of got in the way so I couldn't see it. And then over here, our centers are all already marked for us. So the center panels on the front and the back, and then the side seams over here, we're gonna go ahead and match those up with the marks that we just put on here. So one of the center panels over here, we're going to mark up with the center panel on this piece. And we are putting them right sides together. If you haven't sewn curves before, this is going to be a bit tricky, but it's also just a fun bag, and if you screw it up, oh well. If there's some puckers in the end, oh well. All right, so now we have those pieces clipped in place. So now I just need to oh, this one pulled out. Now I just need to fill in the spaces in between. It might be easier. Dang. These clips they aren't the most secure apparently. Okay. I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh, you might want to cut some little snips into the sides here. Sometimes that is helpful. But with the interfacing on here, you'll find you can kind of just push it in to the other exterior and then line up the interfacing here, and it kind of sits really nicely. Yeah. I'm dropping all of my clips everywhere. You're gonna need a lot of clips for this. It's just how it goes when you're sewing curves. All right, so I have it all clipped now, and I am going to sew it from the bottom side because I don't want to sew through my bottom, the very thick interfacing, because that will cause puckers. Like on this one here, it's not necessarily that it puckers, but like the bottom here you can kind of see is rolling down, and that's because over on this side I sewed through that firm interfacing. And I actually only did one layer of the Decoville Heavy on this bag versus this one I have two, so it would be even worse. So you just want to go slow and do your best to not sew through, the bottom stabilizer. So I'm going to go from that side up, and I left a little opening with my clips here so that I could get my presser foot in. Okay, so I'm sewing directly next to that stabilizer, but I am not going through it. All right, I'm trying out a new angle. I don't know if this is gonna work, but we'll try it and see. Hopefully it does. My seam allowance got off there. All right. Okay. So coming out of the corner here, I think it works better if you lay it down flat like this versus still having to try and come up. Now that I'm getting to the corner here, I have to kind of lift up the back end of it. Ooh, that shifted the second I moved my needle. Okay, just kidding, not yet. Gotta go a little bit further before I start shifting it up. All right, I'm back on the side now, so I'm flattening it back out again. All right, so we got that all sewn on. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it right side out and just see what it's looking like right now before I trim down my seam allowance, just to make sure it looks all right. There's nothing that I need to redo or anything. All right, I think it's looking good. So that is a nice sturdy bottom. Yeah, I think we're good. I don't have any puckers. I don't know how that happened. I always have puckers on curves. All right, so looking good. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it wrong side out again. And then I'm going to trim down the seam allowance to about 1/4 of an inch. All right, and then time to attach the D-rings. So what I'm going to do for these ones, a little bit different, but instead of sewing it, so I think in the pattern it has you sew like the long way this way, sew it in half like this, and then like this, top stitch on either side, and then fold it. So my issue with my machine is, if you have an industrial, this probably isn't an issue, but doing this makes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of fabric plus interfacing, plus all of this and the lining that I then have to go and top stitch through, and my machine struggled through that. So instead of doing it that way, what I'm going to do is just draw a line down the center this way and fold my pieces in towards the center like this, so it still ends up being 1 inch, and then folding it over. I might end up trimming it down because that's going to be kind of long, but let me press it with the iron and I'll show you. So the long ways, I went ahead and so it's taller than it is wider, and I just went ahead and folded those in towards the center, and I'm going to go ahead and top stitch on either side of that. We'll do that for both pieces. Pinch. Oh, I forgot about you. All right, and then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and loop that through the D-ring, not D-ring, rectangle, square ring, whatever this thing is called. I like to loop mine. It doesn't really matter because either way it's going to be covered, but I like to loop mine so that the seam here is where the D-ring is. No, where the connector is. This is what happens when I try and sew after a work week, because it is Friday night and I'm struggling with words. Yeah, I think I am just gonna go ahead and cut these down. Nah, I'll do it later. All right, so here's what we got. And I'm just gonna go ahead, like when I go and put these on the bag, I'll have a big overhang so that, you know, it trims off all of this extra so I don't have this big huge thing that my bag is connected to. Okay, yeah, so that would be now that I am doing that. All right, and then on the side seam here, you're just gonna center this piece up with the side seam here, and I'm gonna have mine overhang quite a bit. And then we're gonna do like a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yeah, that should be fine. All right, yeah, so I'm gonna have mine overhang. This is like 3/4 of an inch. And you just kind of have to eyeball it to see if it is centered. And we'll just go ahead and baste that in place. I'm gonna do it from the back here because I can't really see where my seam is. Okay, so I have that basted in place, and we'll do the same thing with the other one here. Have that overhang by, I think I said 3/4 of an inch. Centered. Oh, and in order to make sure that it is centered, you can actually just center it up with the side seams back here, because those, we did a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so these butterflied open would be 1 inch. So you can just align them with the side seam here. Just realized that. Okay, well, we got those both basted in place, so we can go ahead and set this aside and start working on our lining. Okay, and for the lining, I don't remember how big this piece is or how big we're supposed to draw a box on it, and I'm filming with my phone and can't look up the pattern. So what I'm going to do is just draw a box on here that is a 1/2 inch wide and 1 inch in from the sides and 1 inch down from the center, whatever that ends up being. Let me find my center. And you're going to want to draw this line on the wrong side of your lining piece, which this is canvas, and it doesn't really, I don't know which is the wrong side and which is the right side, so I'm just guessing here. Okay. One inch, and then another line a 1/2 inch down from there. And then connecting those to make it into a box. And I went in 1 inch from the sides and down 1 inch from the top. And then we're gonna go ahead and take one of our lining pieces. Why does it seem so short? Yeah, I guess it is. Okay. I'm used to boxing the bottom, so I'm used to there being like extra on the bottom that's gonna turn into the bottom, so it just looks short, but it's correct. All right, so mark the center, which I think I already did, like creased it, but And I don't remember how far down. I want to say it's supposed to be like an inch down. We'll go with that. I don't know. Yeah, because any further down and it would be down into the exterior here. Yeah, so I'm going to do an inch down from the top. Aligning the center marks. And we're doing this on the, I'm doing it on the wrong side. There's one side that like looks slightly different, like the weave is different, so I think that's the wrong side. But I really have no idea. No, just kidding. Okay, yeah, so we want to do it on the right side of the lining. So we're going to put right sides together. Okay, and then just sew around that box right on the line where you traced, or where you drew, or whatever. You can pin it if you want. I usually have good enough luck just holding it in place. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and cut right down the center there. You could draw a line down the center and like the V's and all that, but I am just gonna eyeball it. When you get to like 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch from the side of the box, you're just gonna cut out a little V shape like that. Now we can flip our pocket piece through that opening. And we will take it over to the iron and give it a press so that it all sits nicely. All right, gave that a press with the iron. So we have the lining piece of the pocket over here looking like that. So this should be the right side of the pocket. And then we'll take our zipper. I like my zipper pull closed on the left-hand side, but this is personal preference. And I'm just gonna go ahead and center my teeth right down the middle of that box there. You can pin it in place. You can use double-sided tape to hold it in place, whatever works for you. Again, I usually have decent enough luck just holding it. And I just kind of adjust as I go, making sure it's still in the center. That is the front of our pocket on. So now we just need to take our other pocket piece and figure out which one I want is the exterior, or I mean the right side. I'll say that one. All right, and we'll lay it right sides together. And we will clip. And we're gonna leave the bottom opening so that we can turn the bag through the lining of the zipper pocket. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is actually just fold the lining up just a little bit, like maybe a 1/2 inch or so, 1/4 inch. It just helps it, like when you're trying to close up the bottom seam of the pocket, once we have it all turned right side out, it just kind of helps with that. Okay, when I get towards the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead and fold that up just like I did on the other side here, and just sew right over it. And then I am going to go ahead and just trim down over by the seam here. You don't have to do the whole way around the pocket, but just over by the seam. And then what you can do here is flip the spot that you just turned it wrong side, right side out. Do that on both sides. You're just kind of like folding the seam back. And then you can give this a press with your iron if you'd like, but it really kind of just sits nicely just like that. And now we have an easy seam that we can go ahead and stitch closed when we are done with the bag. All right, so we have our zipper pocket all done. It is open on the bottom. So now we can go ahead and take our lining, our other lining piece. If you want to add a slip pocket to it, that's not included in the pattern, but you can definitely go ahead and do that. And we'll call that right side. So we'll go ahead and take those pieces and lay them right sides together. But what we're gonna do to help us not have a slouchy, baggy lining inside the bag is we're going to, at the top of the seam up here, start out at 1/2 inch seam allowance. And once we get like 1/3 or halfway down the seam, we're gonna slowly start working our way over to 5/8 inch seam allowance. And then we'll continue the seam at 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over on the other side, starting at the top, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then as we work our way down, slowly start shifting over to 5/8 inch seam allowance. All right. And then this you do not have to do, but honestly, all of the fraying of this canvas is bugging me. So I am going to use my pinking shears and just trim down the seam allowance. You just need to trim down the seam allowance. I am just using pinking shears to stop with the fraying because it's bugging me. But yeah, you just need to trim down the seam allowance though. Pinking shears optional. All right, and now for the lining, we want to go ahead and we already have our side seams marked, so we'll need to do the middle seams here. So I'm just pinching the two side seams together. So that'll get me the center of my lining on one side and then do the same on the other. And I just cut a tiny little notch out of it. And it is just enough, like it doesn't go down into my seam allowance very far. I think that's probably like 1/8 or 1/4 inch down. Big enough that I can clearly see it on both of them, but it is small enough that it's going to be well within my seam allowance and you'll never know that it's there once the bag is together. And then on our bottom piece. From when I was tracing it out, I already have the centers marked here, but you would just want to like fold it in half and mark the center there. And then fold it in half long ways. And just, you can mark it with a pencil, but just snip it off. And do that on both sides. And I am going to clip my pocket up here just to keep it out of the way, because it does come down pretty far into like the bottom seam here. So we'll put them again right sides together. So I have the wrong side face up to me right now. So I should see the wrong side of both the bottom piece here and the like main lining. Do it that way. And a million clips again. Start with the sides, like the pieces that I can match up together. And then the side seam here, since we didn't top stitch it or anything, it's just kind of flapping open. So I'm just going to butterfly it to distribute that seam. And clip. Same with on this side, butterfly it open. And clip. And now I can start working my way around. So, I don't know, there. Pull a clip out that's not on the curve, and we'll go ahead and start on that. And we're gonna do a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Sometimes it helps to kind of stick your hand in the bag and kind of like, what's the word? Flatten out. I couldn't think of the word flatten. Flatten out the lining, like from the inside. That kind of helps. go. I am on a roll. There's like no puckers at all. I don't know what's going on. Okay, and again, we're gonna go ahead and trim down our seam allowance. And again, I am using pinking shears strictly because this is annoying me with how much little fraying pieces are getting all over me. Granted, as soon as I put the bag together, that will stop, but in the meantime. I don't know if you could hear that, but that was my husband sneezing all the way downstairs. All right, so there is our lining now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this, flip it out so that it's right side out. So we got the lining and everything done. Now we can start on the zipper part of it. So what it says to do is you want to go ahead and mark a line at the 1 inch mark of the zipper from the open end, another at 6 inches, and another at 11 inches. And I think this is a little different from the pattern, but what I'm gonna do, I feel like it would just be easier. My brain can't grasp adding the zipper the way that the pattern has. If it works for you, that's awesome. But I'm just gonna go ahead and the first little tick mark that we have to draw here, I'm just gonna go ahead and fold the zipper over just like that. And then sew that right in place. Do that on both sides. I think this way might make the zipper a little bit shorter, but whatever. So that made my zipper just like that. I am gonna trim that down. Okay, and then we are going to put our zipper right sides together. I am looking at the panel that has the zipper pocket on here, and the zipper pocket is closed, so this zipper is closed on this side as well. I am going to go ahead and open it up. Oh no, that reminds me. Missed a spot, or missed a step. I have to put this on. Okay, all right, so what I did was fold in the longer sides first so that it's like taller versus wider. So fold those in and then fold in the shorter sides. And then we'll fold that in half. And then we just insert the closed end of our zipper into that. We'll push it all the way to the back so that the zipper is buttoned up there. I'm gonna clip that in place, and I'm just centering my zipper in that spot, and then we'll just go ahead and sew around the entire thing at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is our zipper end then. If you have an actual like metal zipper end, you could definitely put that on there too. All right, so now we are going to take our exterior, and I have it so that I am looking at the zipper pocket here, and my zipper is going the same way as this zipper. Oh, I keep forgetting steps. Okay, before we do that, we first need to make some marks on the bag. So on all of our like side seams here, we're gonna measure 1 inch from this side seam here. We're gonna go up the little hill towards the side, or towards the center over here. So we're gonna go up the hill 1 inch and mark a little tick, and do that on all 4 of the side panel pieces. All right, so now we can do the zipper. So I'm looking at the zipper, making sure my zippers are going in the same direction. And what I'm gonna do is my zipper end, this is gonna be hard to show, but basically the middle zipper tick mark that we sewed, or that we like drew on here, align that with the center of your bag. And then we'll just work our way up, clipping the zipper into place all the rest of the way up. And it should be that the first tick mark that you drew onto the zipper matches up with that line that we just drew on the bag. And then the last tick mark that we drew should match up with the tick mark on the zipper. Like the zipper one should match up with the other little 1 inch mark over on this side. And when we get to that point, what we're gonna do is have our zipper just trail off right into the bag. So it's just gonna angle down into the bag there, right at that 1 inch mark. Okay, so we have our zipper all pinned in place or clipped in place, and it is trailing off over on the side, over on the closed end over here. So we're gonna go ahead and just baste that in place. Okay, and I'm coming up to the spot, like that little tick mark here, and when we get to that spot, we're letting our zipper kind of trail off down, and we're just going to keep on sewing straight so that our zipper looks like that. So it just kind of starts coming down. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing over on the other side. So I'm going to first match up the second tick mark that I drew on here. Match that up with the center seam. And the first tick mark, like where we folded it over, should match up with that first tick mark over on the other side, like that first line that we sewed. No, not the first line that we sewed, the first line that we drew over on the side here. Man, sewing on a Friday night after a long work week, probably not the greatest idea. And I can't even see where my little tick mark is. Okay, there we go. Now this one's a little bit harder on this side because we're starting over here. But I'm just gonna tuck my zipper down in. And I have my clip going like right at that little tick mark here. And then it just trails off into the exterior down here. And I'm just gonna start sewing over here at 1/4 inch and just come right on across. Or at 1/8 of an inch. All right, and when you are holding like the sides over, you should be able to like kind of pinch everything together and the zippers and everything line up in the same spot. So it ends in the same spot over here and it trails off in the same spot over here. All right, and now we're gonna go ahead and take our pocket here and let's see, closed that way, not that way. I'm gonna put the zipper pocket on the opposite side of the exterior zipper pocket. We're just gonna kind of toss that in there just like that. So they are right sides together now. And I have my zipper tucked in again. You don't want it poking out like this and trying to sew it. It's not gonna work. So tuck down in. And we're just gonna go ahead and clip the whole way around. And it would definitely be helpful if I marked the center of the lining, which I did not do. So let's see. I'm just gonna pull the lining taut, like match up the center seams of the lining here. Match those up and just kind of tug it outside of the exterior. And that should give you the center mark that you can then match up with the center seam of that back panel. We'll do the same on the other side. Probably easier, oops. Easier if you do this before putting it all together, but I forgot. I could just unclip it just as easily, but okay. Pinching it, and there's my center. And then we'll just clip all the way around again. Okay, and then we're just gonna go ahead and the entire top here, we're gonna go ahead and sew as close to the zipper as you can get. If you can get 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, awesome. I think the closest that I'm gonna be able to get is 1/4 inch, so that's all that I'm shooting for. Just because I don't have my zipper foot on. My machine keeps, or like my clips keep getting stuck under my machine, so sewing this way, it's not the easiest. It might have been easier to try and go inside, like sew it from the lining side instead, but now we got the top all sewed. We're not gonna, actually I am gonna trim down the, this is the D-ring connector just because there's so much overhang of that. But the rest of the seam allowance I'm not gonna trim down. And then we're just gonna go ahead and, I didn't open up my zipper, but I should be able to still open it. There we go, from inside. So we're gonna go ahead and just turn the bag right side out through our zipper pocket. And that zipper pocket is nice and big, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get. The hardest part is just gonna be like the bottom, because it's so sturdy. It's gonna be hard to kind of fold to get through, but bottom, the exterior. And we're gonna hold off on closing up that zipper pocket until that's gonna be our last step. So we're just gonna push our lining in. All right, and we have quite a bit more connector here than I meant to have. So I am actually going to go ahead and just, because this is like loose and like it moves around and stuff, which I just don't like. So I'm just going to go ahead and put like a little stitch as close as I can get to the connector over here. Just do a little stitch to hold it in place. Okay, so there we go. Now it can still twist around, but not nearly as much. I could put my zipper foot on and get even closer, but haven't done the zipper foot yet, so why would I do it now? Oh no! Ran out of bobbin. All right, well, better on that piece than on the actual top stitching. All right, so we can see the zipper. It is kind of trailing off just like that. So that's what we're looking for. And you can go ahead and take this over to your iron and give it a press to get your seam all laying nicely. All right, so I went ahead and pressed that top seam here. And now we're just gonna go ahead and trim my threads that I forget to trim. Now we're just gonna go ahead and top stitch the whole way around. Now this time you do want your zipper up and out of the way when you're top stitching, and then we'll tuck it back in when we're done. Yeah, no, that way, yeah, up and out of the way. Which, depending on how long of a tail you did, might be a little difficult, but. And I think I'm gonna start my top stitching like on the back here. Try and do it in a less conspicuous area. And I am going from the top on this, or from the exterior, just so that I can see my top stitching and where it lands a little bit easier. I think that's gonna be, usually ends up being a nicer look. Let me see if I can get a better angle. That was a skipped stitch. I could see it. Basically the whole way around, I'm just using my hump jumper. All right, so now we can go ahead and tuck that in. So it's a little bit of a squeeze, but just kind of shove it down in there. There we go. So there we go. So now we just need to go ahead and attach our strap or sew the strap and attach it, and we are good to go. So for the strap, it's going to be same old normal strap, connector, strap assembly. So we're just going to go ahead and fold the sides in, or the ends in, like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, something like that, and give that a press. And then we will fold it in half, press to get a center mark, fold the sides in, and then fold it in towards the center with these raw edges hidden inside too, and then sew around the entire thing at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so we got our strap, so now we just need to go ahead and connect it on here. So I'm just folding it over, like enough room to give me a couple lines of stitches. Make sure there's no twists in it. and then I'll just go ahead and sew a couple line of stitches, or you can do a really small box stitch, whatever. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go one stitch up. And then come back down. Maybe I'll do two. Do a really small box stitch here. And then same on the other side here. Come up a couple of stitches. Side. All right, and there we go. So we got our, oh no, just kidding. One last step. We've got to close up the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to throw a couple clips on here. And then now we'll close up the bottom. Push that pocket in. All right, and now we're done. So we got a nice big old zipper pocket on the inside here. A nice size zipper pocket here, which is big enough for your phone. All right, but there we go. And it's got a nice sturdy bottom to it. It is a nice sturdy bottom, so it's a slouchy bag with a sturdy bottom. How many times can I say sturdy bottom? Yeah. But yeah, fun little bag. All right, well, there we go. This is the Ugly Naked Guy Hobo bag. Fun little bag. It came together pretty quickly without too much hassle. So just a fun, cute little project. I really enjoyed this. I'm trying to decide if I want to keep this one for myself or what, but it's a cute little bag. But yeah, so if you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that. I try my best to answer any questions that you might have. And make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for other projects that we're going to work on. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hi, Eleanor. Hi, what can I help you with? Oh, there's my more. Oh, your eyes are red. Are you so tired? What? Do you have to go potty? Do you gotta go potty? All right, we'll go potty.